Hey, hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. I've gotta do a board game review right now. Thank you. All right. Bye. Today we are going to be talking about the board game Quin. When you're playing Quin, you start out by choosing: do you want to play the arcade mode, or do you want to play the third eye mode? I'm going to go over the rules of the arcade mode first, and then kind of give you a summary of the third eye mode. How to win the game, and what you do on your turn. So, the way to win the game is one of two ways. This light piece is very special. You take it, and you get it to the middle, that's going to be a win. Also, if you ever destroy an opponent's light piece by capturing it, maybe you move this shadow piece right here and capture the light piece, or use some sort of piece that captures the light piece of your opponent, that's also a win. So two ways to win. Okay. On your turn, you are going to either move a tower. So each of these pieces are called towers. You can flash a rival's tower, so that's moving to attack the person's tower. So basically moving, but the end of your move lands on somebody else's tower. You can use a power, although some of the powers don't take your whole turn. In the arcade mode, actually, it says that two of the powers of time and the power of resurrection would not use a power. But for the most part, as you're playing the game, using a power takes your whole turn. Then bringing in a reinforcement. Sometimes you'll have pieces that are right here. They're your reinforcements, and you can bring them out onto the open gateways. Right now there's no open gateway, but here, there's an open gateway. Maybe we move up a piece right here, and you could bring in a reinforcement. Usually just one reinforcement. However, with the artificial light in the game, that's the pieces that look like this. You can bring in as many as you want, provided you have the open gateways for that move. At this point, I'll tell you, everything in this game is hidden information until it's not. Like that, I just said with that move, the artificial light coming in, that would make you know if you had like two open gateways and you brought in two artificial lights, that would let the opponent know, hey, they have two pieces that they brought in. That means they're both artificial lights. Now I just have to remember that those pieces are artificial lights. And now the opponent knows what you have available to attack them with. And they know that those are not your actual light. It is possible to start with the actual light not in the game, and in that case, your opponent could kill all the pieces and they wouldn't be able to find your... remember, though, there is the other way of winning. The opponent could just land right here and win the game. So, lastly, everybody has one chance in the whole game to resurrect a lost piece. You can have a stuffed animal or some sort of mascot, if you will, that you just flip over, or the game comes with two coasters. So they're actually kind of cool little coasters. And what we did was we just flipped them over when we used our resurrect a piece move. And that meant that it was done with, and then we couldn't use that action anymore. But in future turns, we could use the other actions. Resurrecting a piece also means that you have to have an open gateway on your opponent's side that would resurrect a piece onto your opponent's side that they have captured. So maybe this piece is dead, it's over here, you can bring it back to this piece. Alright, so those are the different actions you can do on a turn, and a little explanation for each of them. Now, when you collide with an opponent's piece, each of these pieces have different movement amounts that are stated right here. So your light, that's like the king in this abstract strategy game, it's got 2 movement. So it can move... Oh, that's not the right light. I've just moved around all the pieces. Here we go. So, the actual light piece can only move 2 spaces. Forward or side to side. In this case, it'd be blocked by this piece. No moving through pieces. So at the start of the game, you're actually, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Alright, so 1 turn, 2 turns, 3 turns, 4 turns, 5 turns away from winning the game in the very beginning of the game. And there may even be a way to do it faster with some of the other powers. But, so yeah, pretty quick games actually if you're not careful. As an opponent gets one piece very close, you want to make sure that that piece is not your opponent's light, and if it is, you quickly capture it. The only way to all the pieces have restricted movements. The only way to get through to the other side of your opponent is going to be to go through this, the iris is what it's called. If you can't get through other than going through the iris, there's some pieces that have other abilities, like this piece, the peripheral, which is actually able to land on these horizon spaces. No other piece is allowed to do that. They have to go through here, at least in the arcade mode. There are ways to do other things in the other third eye mode, but just talking about the arcade mode, you're going to be looking at a game where you're not going to be running over to the opponent's side of the board and crushing them. It's going to be a more friendly type of game where you just try to make it to the middle of the table and try to decipher based on how quickly your opponent's pieces are moving and how they are moving, and any dead giveaways like bringing in 2 artificial lights. That would be a dead giveaway that those are not the light piece that's moving forward. So yeah, kind of a game of guess what your opponent is doing, and I like that about this game. It's like an ESP, like trying to get into your opponent's head. What would they be doing right now? What is their goal? And are they trying to play a quick game, try to get into the middle? Are they trying to run over to my side using these peripherals, or using the quickest piece, the shadows, to just bolt right through and attack me and seek out my light and destroy it? What are they trying to do? Long game, short game, high offensive, high defensive, very high discovery, try to discover what my pieces are. Are they going to rely on their different powers? Because there's a lot of different powers that each of these pieces can activate too. So with that, now you kind of have a feel for the game. We are going to go over what each piece does. So here, we've got your light, and that's going to go just like 2 spaces. Okay, it captures anything that it lands on, just automatically kills it. And if something lands on it, then it's possible to get captured itself, depending on which piece it is. And of course, when you flash, or that's colliding with another person's tower, then you both look at what that piece is, so you're going to know what that is. So now we're looking at the shadow. So shadows, they're the fastest piece. They're going to move 7 spaces. You have 2 of them, so you're going to go pretty far in the beginning. You can move less than that amount. So if I only move 2 spaces with this shadow, it's like a mind game. I'm letting the other player know that that could be a shadow, that could be a light, because we talked about the light piece can move 2 spaces. Artificial light can move 2 or 5 spaces, depending on if there are, if all your shadows are dead. So when both shadows are dead or captured by your opponent, and captured pieces are literally like placed all the way over here on the opponent's side of the board, then all the artificial lights that are going to come in the late game, they're going to be moving 5 spaces. Okay, they can also be brought in multiple, like I've said. Next up, the reflectors. So the reflectors, they move 2 spaces at most, and they, just like all the other pieces, continuous line, all of them are continuous line. With their power with the reflectors, they can take somebody on a continuous line and they can transport it. So this piece starting right here could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 3 turns. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then for, nope, actually it can't be on the iris. Anyways, it has the ability to bring a piece forward, and it teleports it along its single line. So it might be good to place a piece that's useful to fly that far up like that. And so that's kind of what the reflectors can do. They can reflect. The only thing is they can only reflect light. So either light or the artificial light can be reflected as an action. And like I said in the beginning, only 2 different powers in the game don't take a turn. So the power of time and that power of resurrection. So you are going to take your whole turn to reflect somebody forward. Okay. Next up, we have the memory. So a memory, it can swap places with any of your pieces on your same side of the board. And these swaps can't happen obviously across the iris or the horizon. So maybe you get a piece really close, and then you say, okay, I want to swap it with my king piece. And they don't know that you just swapped it with their king piece. They only know that this piece now obviously is the memory piece that you did this swapping with. So it's a lot of getting in the head of your opponent in this game. Next up, the time piece. From anywhere on your side of the board, not from here, you can self-destroy it. So give it to your opponent. And that means you rewind the last move that your rival made. Unless they made a capture, they moved a shadow, or took the first sight, it's called, and they win the game by doing that. So if they had moved a shadow, maybe they move a shadow just 2 spaces. Let's see, is this one a shadow? Sure, yeah. So they move their shadow just 2 spaces, and I say, hey, I want to use my time to rewind time. And they say, oh, you can't. It was a shadow piece. And so your time move fails. Okay. Next up is the peripheral. So we talked about that a little bit in the beginning. It's the only piece that can move freely onto what's called the horizon and off the horizon. And so it can actually get into your opponent's area, and its max movement is 3 spaces. So if this peripheral moves 3 spaces, I don't know if it's a peripheral or a shadow until it actually goes onto the horizon. So, but it does narrow it down, because I know once you move 3 spaces, you're not a reflector. You're not a memory. Unless it's late game, you're not an artificial light. So lastly, we have the voids. So voids are kind of like your bombs in the game Stratego. If somebody attacks a bomb, they will both die. So if a bomb attacks a bomb, they both die. If your light attacks a bomb, they both die, and now white lost the game. Yeah, you get it. They both die. The game goes over what actually is able to capture. So if it's not a mutual destruction where you try to take on a void and you both blow up, if it's not a mutual destruction, oh, and I forgot, actually, lights are able to, they're kind of like the miners of Stratego. They are able to actually take on these bombs, these voids, and not die themselves. So the game goes through different pieces, what they're able to do as far as captures go. So the void's able to capture, the peripheral's able to capture, the time captures when it attacks, artificial light captures, shadows captures, and then light captures when they attack. So it favors the offensive player. However, if the reflectors are memory, if they try to capture, they just swap places. So how that would look is maybe, I mean, as long as they didn't attack a void. So my opponent has his light right here, and maybe his shadow. His shadow goes through here, and then I somehow attack this piece. I get to look at both pieces, and I see, okay, and he sees, my opponent sees, And then we, instead of his piece getting captured, we swap places. So just some of the pieces are less potent. Memory and Reflector, they're less potent. They swap places. Also shadows will swap places with other shadows, but other than that, a shadow is going to kill off another piece. Now, in Quinn, there's less possibility to fight other players. Some games do this, like in Chinese chess, certain pieces can't go across like a river line in the middle of the board. In this game, actually, only one piece really can go across this side area of the board. Stratego itself, which is a game that kind of reminded me of this game, has pieces that are hidden information until you actually fight with them. Or some of the pieces in Stratego might move a certain distance, very few of them though, and then as soon as they move their max distance or farther than the other pieces, you can start deducing what piece that is that moved so quickly. So there's a little bit of that in the game. So restricted movement that Chinese chess has, and Stratego has 2 lakes that create kind of 3 battle lane possibilities. Here we really have something of that nature with only one piece able to cross all the lanes and all the other pieces needing to pass through the middle, effectively going in a greater distance than the king piece, the light, needs to go to reach their goal, which is very different than some of those other abstract games that I just mentioned. Being able to just end the game from only going halfway across. I mean, you think of other abstract games, Onitama, where you have to would get all the way to the other side of the board to win, enter their opponent's throne room. The 2 different win conditions I do like. You think of traditional chess, capturing the opponent's king, or checkmating your opponent's king. That's just one way to win. I like that there's 2 different ways to win in this game. So that was kind of a cool, tricky thing. I like that, unlike in Stratego, where all the pieces are the same amount of pieces each time, here you have one piece that's taken away and one piece that's added with the clones in the game. And so you don't know exactly what makeup fully your opponent has with where they've placed them, and the amount of pieces, the pieces that they have on their side of the game. They may have 2 of these time powers. They may have an extra bonus artificial light or memory swap or a bomb. So I did like that, a little bit more uncertainty with the makeup of your opponent's pieces, not just the positioning of those pieces. So that was a pretty cool thing. So overall quality of the game, the pieces look great. You can actually customize the pieces. That's part of the setup, is you are supposed to take one of the pieces and change it out with a different clone piece. So one of these types of pieces you could put on, and they all have ways to plop that piece right in there. And so if I wanted to play with somebody maybe new at the game, I could recommend them to take this time piece and replace it with one of their slower moving pieces. And myself, I could say, hey, I'm not going to be doing that, so now you have one of the more powerful pieces, 2 copies of that powerful piece, and I'll just take one of the weaker copies that they provide. So that's a cool thing that they have in setup of the game. The game also comes with really good quality bags. Like I said, these coasters before. Oh, also, the board is magnetic, so that's pretty cool there. They figured out how to make a magnetic board without it warping. The game comes with a strategy guide, so that was nice to be able to look through this and see different recommendations, how to play with each piece. And as you get more familiar with the game, you can try the third eye mode, which has different rules for how the pieces capture, such as the peripherals can only capture the shadows, right? Different extra rules like that. How they capture, how they move. There's even a void magical spell that lets some of the other void pieces teleport, if they're on the same ring, I believe, teleport to that void and possibly even go onto the horizon, allowing voids to move into your opponent's area. And even though they move slow, your opponent has to kind of sacrifice a piece, unless they're using a light, I think, to kill a void. So, different powers are added to the game with this third eye mode. But as far as components go, beautiful game. A lot of care went into making this one, and so definitely really appreciated that. This game also did something very interesting. In order to add this power of resurrection, they recommended you take a toy or some sort of other piece not provided by the game to be able to use this extra power, it says once per game, to be able to bring back a piece to life on the other side of your opponent's board. So capturing an opponent's piece and allowing you to do this cool little thing. It doesn't add too much to the game, but it is a factor in the game. And they didn't provide a piece for that, but that's fine, because in a way they actually did with these coasters. You could just flip over the coaster and hey, you're done with that power. I don't think it even mentions that you could do that with the coasters, but so it actually would prefer, it even says it, like, it has a funny reasoning for why they recommend you have these these totems, they call them. Quinn is a battle of shadows and lights, a rush to existence where matter and antimatter collide in subatomic space, and quantum science tells us that none of it can happen until it is seen. So, be unique, be yourself, the universe depends on it. So, I thought that was kind of interesting, that they recommend that you come to the table with like a stuffed animal or some sort of totem, rather than just rely on these coasters. But, I mean, for me, I was just like, alright, you provide these pieces, I'm going to use them, and so there you have it. I can do this resurrection thing. But I have not really seen too many games where they say, hey, we didn't provide this piece at all. I've seen where maybe a game says, hey, if we don't have enough tokens, like we only provided 20 food tokens, if you need a 21 or 22 food tokens, for all the players in your game, you should just find pieces that are suitable. I've seen that happen in games, but I have not really seen this where they leave it up to you to deck out your game with a big dinosaur or a stuffed animal or something like that. And I thought that was unique, that they allow you to do that, and it's not going to be frowned upon if there starts being giant Quinn tournaments where people bring their own totems rather than just taking some coasters. They bring their own totems that are like whatever you want them to be, but they let people know what you're about. If you want to bring a stuffed llama, maybe you like llamas, I don't know, but yeah, I've never seen that in a game before. I just thought that was interesting. So, what did I think of the game Quinn? I really liked it. I really liked the different strategies that came about as you played the game. It has a strategy guide, so like recommends some strategies to you. But just coming into it with just knowing the rules and exploring the different strategies, I thought was really pretty cool that they allow you to figure out these different ideas. So as soon as I moved a piece a little bit farther than the average movement of all the other pieces, maybe I move it 3 spaces, you already deduced that it's one of these 2 pieces, and if I move it even farther, right, it's only going to be the shadow. But that's okay. You can still win an abstract strategy game with your opponent knowing what piece you have. And so I thought that was kind of interesting. There is maybe a little bit of memory element to the game with, okay, now I have to remember that piece is moved really fast, that's a shadow piece. Or that piece right there keeps moving 1 space each turn. Could that be a void? I don't want to hit the voids, the bombs in the game, right? So I did like the ESP, the getting in the head of the opponent in this game a lot. But what it came down to a lot of times, which is okay, was a lot of the times I'd played with players who had never played the game, right? And then the second time I play them, or third time I play with that player, then they're still learning the game. When you're playing with somebody, you're both learning the game. There's going to be just a word of caution. There's going to be a lot of this, like, hey, I've got a piece that's moving close to the middle. you've got to do something to stop it, or call my bluff that I don't actually have my light piece there. And if you call the bluff wrong, that could be a very short game. I've played 2 games that were super short, just one after the other, of moving the piece super close and, oh, okay, I should have called, or I thought you were bluffing. That was actually the light piece, and now you moved it there, and you've won the game. And then the second time, I'll bet they won't do it again. Okay, they did it again. All right, that was just another 5-turn game. Okay, that didn't last very long. So the game allows for other strategies to maybe hide your light, your king piece, and off the board entirely, and have do a more offensive type of game where you move all the way across the board and try to get in your opponent's area and start capturing pieces, but avoid the voids and not get taken right there. So a light to try to get into your head of your opponent. The word of caution I would say is just that it ends up being a little bit, with new players, not very much different than paper, rock, scissors, where paper covers rock, scissors gets smashed by rock, and you get it, right? If you call the bluff correctly, then you get to have your opponent have wasted a bunch of time. If you were hoping your opponent would think it was a bluff, but you actually had your light really close, and your opponent kills your light, well, you're done. You just lost the game. And so just trying to guess, like, are they going to move their light forward? Or is that a different piece? Are they going to do scissors and I should do rock, right? And so just maybe getting into the head of your opponent and trying to gauge like how they're looking, and are they worried as their piece gets close, because maybe you wouldn't be worried, I don't know, if you have a piece that's really close to the front that's not the light piece. So a lot of potential for bluffing and getting in the head of your opponent, but maybe with new players it's going to be just a, oh darn, yeah, you called my bluff, or oh darn, like you actually took out my light piece, game over. And so there might be a lot of that happening in the beginning, but I think as you get to know the game better, there will be less of that and more of, okay, I'm not going to let somebody even get close, because I'm going to have that area defended with my shadows, just in case something, they get their light too close. I'm going to prepare my peripherals to start moving out and getting into my opponent's area. And I'm going to try to maybe bluff a swap, the swap piece that allows you to move pieces around, and I move a bomb instead of moving my light piece, and so different things like that might start coming out as far as strategies. One thing that I did like about the theme of the game, it's about light. I saw online somebody said, hey, like, you got this board, it's a bunch of rings. You could have just done rings on a tree and moss going through it, right? And I thought that was a funny comment, and almost saying that the game has no theme. Abstract strategy games generally don't, the theme doesn't matter, right? That's why they're abstract. They could be any pieces, they could be leaves going across, or bugs going across the rings of a tree or something like that. But this game actually, I think the theme, as you're designing the mechanics of a game, maybe you say, okay, I'm going to do it about light, or I'm going to do about bugs going through the rings of a tree. And you decide that generally based on what will help teach the rules of a game, or at least if I was a game designer, that's how I would decide what theme I'm going to veer towards. So with this one, I think they took the right call with doing it about light, and moving light through an iris. I think that works, and it helps understand, okay, light can be seen, getting it to the first sight. If your light actually makes it to the first sight, you win. Shadow can cover light, and so you have their shadow piece that can take on a light piece. different things like that. A void, anything in a void, like light going into a void just disappears. Or I'm not a physicist or anything like that, but I can imagine like the theme of the game does kind of work for it being about light, and all these pieces are just different forms of matter and light moving around, rather than bugs going through circles in a tree. So the theme works, I would say. And yeah, I liked the idea of getting into other players' heads. I think my favorite piece would probably be the time piece, because that was so useful to be able to say, okay, I made a mistake, and this is my moment where I'm going to fix that mistake, or I'm going to have this one time piece, or two times if you chose to clone your time, and swap a thing. I wish they had done a clock or something like that. Why is it a mask? I don't understand that, but that's okay. Making somebody undo their move that they had just done. And I understand the third eye version of the game does something different. I think it moves a piece 3 spaces back with the third eye move, rather than undo the turn that you had just done. But that was pretty cool, provided you have to remember what move just got done. But that shouldn't be too bad, because it was just barely done, and then you say, nope, I didn't like that move. Move your shadow back, because you're getting too close to my light piece, and then we'll continue from there. I thought that was a pretty cool thing that I haven't seen a lot of games do, where, okay, I may have made a mistake, I want you to undo your turn. That was probably my favorite piece of the different ones, but I can tell a lot of thought went into each of the pieces and how they would move and what they do in the game. So overall, I think it is a really killer, great game, and I would love for Quinn to make it into tournaments across the world, and people playing Quinn and sitting down with their mascot or their totem and playing against each other, trying to get into each other's head. I would like for there to be maybe AI agents figuring out Quinn and trying to optimize strategies with how to win it based on different hidden pieces and variable movement. I think that could be an interesting study that somebody could take on. So overall, great experience, great game. Really glad that I was able to play this game. So thank you so much for watching, and go out there and get yourself a copy of Quinn.